Look, I wanted just a quick aside because I was thinking about this earlier now that he's officially running, and I think that we have a pretty good grasp mentally on what's going on the Democratic side. Like, you've got Hillary, she represents, the establishment and all that. She's got the experience both in and outside of government. And then you've got Bernie Sanders, who, to a lot of progressives, he doesn't tick all of our boxes, like his position on weed legalization, stuff like that. It's not exactly what we'd want, but he does fill a lot of what we want out of a presidential candidate, and he didn't change in 2006 on key issues. He didn't change in 96 on key issues. There's letters dating back to the 70s where he had all the right positions on both fiscal and social issues. And so we know what that is, and we know, maybe Biden's going to run or Malloy or whatever, but we have a good idea of what's going on. On the Republican side, like,
I'm going to guess you meant O'Malley. I don't think we're going to have a
What did I say?
Malloy.
That's what I meant.
That's
Sorry.
how bad it is for Martin O'Malley that even us here. No, right. I was thinking, there's no question. And you're forgetting Lincoln Chafee.
That is totally true. But, like, think if you were actually a Republican right now, looking at the candidates they have, and they have a lot of them, half of them aren't even legitimately running for the presidency. They're at best going to end up, as we're going to show you later, on piñatas. Maybe they're hoping to generate some speaking fees. And then you've got, are you going to vote for Ted Cruz so that he's going to stand strong against the Supreme Court legalizing same-sex marriage? Or you gonna vote for Walker, who's going to just ream the unions? Like, is that what's going to generate, like, millions of Americans going to rally for Walker for that issue? I don't know. They have so many choices to choose from, and not a winner among them, it doesn't seem like. And I don't think that I'm just being a stereotypical liberal when I say that. They don't even have a Mitt Romney in this case. Like, Mitt Romney had major problems as a candidate, but you could sort of understand how a fiscal conservative could get behind someone like Mitt Romney. I don't know who that's supposed to be. It's not Jeb Bush. It doesn't seem like Scott Walker to me.
I think it's Scott Walker.
You think it's Scott Walker?
I do, yeah.
He seems so clearly reprehensible in a way that Mitt Romney seems out of touch. But out of touch you can forgive. Bad to his core, Scott Walker. He just seems like he's not for the regular Americans. He's not for the regular people.
We'll see what kind of national candidate he is. When Christie talks about he's just a regular guy, and I might be a bully, but I get things done. I'm a leader. I'm not here to make friends. We want to be friends with the president, and they shouldn't forget.
That's true. You want to drink the beer with them,
right? And basically, since 1960, we've, except for very peculiar circumstances, we have elected people we liked. In the television age. Nixon,
on the Republican and Democratic sides.
Nixon wasn't great on television, neither was Johnson, but Johnson was riding Kennedy's coattails when he was elected. Nixon's an interesting case of how that guy got elected. He did barely, but then, of course, a runaway in 72. But Jimmy Carter was likable and seemed likable. Even Gerald Ford seemed likable, and Ronald Reagan, obviously. HW had been HW is sort of a question mark there, too. Not unlikable, but didn't have the same sort of telegenic appeal as others. He was also running against a guy who did not seem very likable in Mike Dukakis.
Yes.
So, you want to say, what? Being likable matters a lot. This is a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Except in 2000 when it was not a popularity contest. So, that matters. And I think that will, I think that also hurts Chris Christie.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Bernie Sanders is affected by that. A guy who doesn't exactly scream charisma, but says all the right things. Is very direct. He doesn't have the smarmy, sort of evasive aura that most politicians have, especially most politicians who've been in government for many decades.
He doesn't have a telegenic likability, but he's not an irritable, fussy guy.
Exactly.
He's not going to snap at people, you know, and there may be a...
That's true.
Look, again, Hillary Clinton's going to be the Democratic nominee. I don't even think it's going to be that interesting.
I think it's getting more interesting with every passing day. The crowds that he's gathering and the movement in the polls and... Look, we have the ridiculous primary system that we have that we probably, all things considered, shouldn't have, but we have it. And in Iowa and in New Hampshire, he is creeping up, and there's still a lot of time to go.
Oh, no. Look, there's time.
I might be naive. No. I'm willing to admit that.
Well, I think you are naive, and I think that it's entirely possible that I am, until I'm totally proven otherwise, going to continue to look at this election the way all other elections have gone, whereas the person who is due the nomination and is massively well-funded and an experienced campaigner, and there are things to criticize her about it on the campaign trail, forget the policy things, which are, of course, totally legitimate, that I just think she's unbeatable. I think she is barring, but maybe we are in a different era. Maybe the social media era has changed things to such an extent that that he could sneak up and upset her in Iowa or finish so close in Iowa and then beat her in New Hampshire. But remember that even when that happened in 2002, sort of the candidate who I see Hillary Clinton as most like, oddly, is George W. Bush. establishment is completely so behind her, and she has so much money, right? And she's nothing like George Bush, but the campaigns are just poised to overwhelm the field, right? But John McCain threw that. Wow, he wins in New Hampshire, and oh my God, and then just. And then just the hammer came down. So even if Bernie Sanders pulled that off, I still feel like, and then the hammer would come down.
It's possible.
But yeah,
it's gonna
but
be
I don't
exciting.
know, man. I'm not an expert. That's just, but don't. In getting excited about Bernie Sanders, and I'm glad to see it. And if I had to vote today, I'd vote for Bernie Sanders. But the money and the power and the sheer political force of the people behind her, and the fact that the president is tacitly going to be supporting her. It's going to be really, really, really hard.
Well, we will have to see.
But
and
you don't
we will
get,
have good seats to see it from.
As we've said many times, there's no chance you get it if you don't run. So
exactly.
he's got some chance.
And he's certainly given it his best shot.